Once more Jesus spoke to them in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his slaves to call those who had been invited to the wedding banquet, but they would not come. Again he sent other slaves, saying, 'Tell those who have been invited, look, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fat calves have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they made light of it and went away, one to his farm, another to his business, while the rest seized his slaves, mistreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his troops, destroyed those murderers, and burned their city. Then he said to his slaves, 'The wedding is ready, but those invited were not worthy. Go therefore into the main streets, and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet.' Those slaves went out into the streets and gathered all whom they found, both good and bad. So the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing a wedding robe. And he said to him, 'Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding robe?' And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, 'Bind him hand and foot, and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen.'"
This parable is like a roller coaster. It starts with joy, takes a dark turn, gets hopeful again, and then ends with a twist that makes you go, "Wait, what just happened?" It's one of those stories that makes you uncomfortable. And honestly, that's probably the point. Let me paint the picture. Imagine the most exclusive wedding of the year. The king is throwing a party for his son. We're talking about the social event of the century. The invitations went out months ago. The caterers have been preparing. Everything is perfect. And then, nobody shows up. I remember planning my sister's wedding. We sent out 200 invitations and were stressed about people not responding. But imagine if literally nobody came. Not because they forgot, not because they were sick, but because they just didn't care enough. They had more important things to do, checking their farms, running their businesses, living their regular lives. But here's where it gets really dark. Some of the invited guests don't just ignore the invitation, they actually attack and kill the messengers. That's not just rude, that's psychotic. And the king's response? He destroys them and burns their city. Suddenly this wedding story sounds more like a war movie. This is Jesus talking about Israel's history. The invited guests represent the religious leaders and people who had been chosen by God but kept rejecting his messengers, the prophets. They didn't just ignore God's invitation, they persecuted and killed those who brought it, and there were consequences. But then the story takes a beautiful turn. The king says, "Fine, if the VIPs won't come, let's invite everyone else." So the servants go out into the streets and invite anyone they can find, both good and bad. The wedding hall gets filled with people who never expected to be there. This is the gospel in a nutshell. When the religious people rejected Jesus, God opened the invitation to everyone: tax collectors, prostitutes, Gentiles, outcasts, you and me. People who never thought they'd be worthy of a royal wedding suddenly find themselves at the king's table. I think about my friend Maria, who grew up thinking she was too messed up for God. She'd made mistakes, had a complicated past, felt like damaged goods. When she first heard that God wanted her at his table, she literally said, "Are you sure you have the right person?" That's the beauty of this parable. God's invitation goes out to everyone, regardless of their past. But then comes the twist that makes everyone uncomfortable. One guy shows up without proper wedding attire and gets thrown out into outer darkness. Wait, what? I thought this was about grace and inclusion. Here's the thing. In ancient culture, when a king threw a wedding, he provided the wedding garments. It wasn't about having expensive clothes. It was about accepting what the host offered. This guy came to the party but refused to wear what the king provided. He wanted to come on his own terms. This is where the parable gets really challenging. Yes, God's invitation is open to everyone. Yes, His grace is free. But you can't come to God's party and insist on wearing your own righteousness. You can't accept the invitation but reject the transformation. I've met people like this. They want the benefits of faith, the community, the comfort, the eternal life, but they don't want to change. They want to add Jesus to their life without letting Jesus change their life. They want to come to the wedding but wear their own clothes. The wedding garment represents what God provides for us, His righteousness, His forgiveness, His transformation. When we come to God, we don't bring our own goodness, we receive His. We don't earn our place at the table, we accept it as a gift, but we do have to accept it. The final line is haunting. Many are called, but few are chosen. It's not that God doesn't want everyone, He clearly does, since He invited people from the streets. It's that not everyone who receives the invitation actually accepts it fully. Some ignore it completely, others show up but refuse to be transformed by it. This parable asks us some hard questions. Have you accepted God's invitation? Are you wearing the wedding garment He provides? Or are you trying to come on your own terms? Are you one of the many who are called, or one of the few who are chosen? The good news is that the invitation is still open. The King is still sending out servants to the highways and byways, saying, "Come to the wedding, everything is ready." The question is, will you come? And when you do, will you let Him clothe you in His righteousness, or will you insist on wearing your own? Because here's what I've learned. God's party is better than anything we could plan for ourselves. His wedding garment is more beautiful than anything we could provide, and His table has room for everyone, including you. The invitation has your name on it. The question is, what will you do with it?